their stories. If you pay attention, you'll become conversant with their secrets. Get ready for another insightful journey on the path of greatness. This is the Untold Story series, stories that will shape the future of the next generation.
Thank you for giving to the Lord. I am alive that was
He. It's a great day to be alive, and we are live on the Untold Story series. And I'm glad to be back again to bring to the fore veterans, people who have, done exploits, and people who are living testimonies of the goodness of God in two great organizations. Today we are on the streets of the Parish Youth, the Church of Pentecost, and I'm glad to have this interview with one of the veterans, man who has served, who's probably one of those long-serving executive, and who is still in the building, who is still in the space, doing fantastic and great things for God. He's a man of deep conviction. He's a man who never backs down from an argument until you have wrestled him to the floor. He's a man of the kingdom-minded man, the man who wants to, if it's possible, he wants to win the entire world, 1 billion souls for Jesus. We have in the building today a great man. But before I introduce and bring him, to start having this conversation, you can be a part of the interview. The number to call is 0809 And if you're calling outside Nigeria, remember to add 234. 0809 That's the number to call. Or you can go on YouTube and search for Untold Story NG. That's the handle, Untold Story NG. We're streaming live there, and you can also go on my timeline if you are my friend, or just go public and search for Adeola Adebayo. We are live. You can drop your comments, and you also have the opportunity to ask direct, customized questions to the guests. It's just that terms and conditions apply. I have the prerogative to decide which question stays and which one does not stay. Also, our guest reserves the right to answer or decline any question. But so far, so good. We have not had any troubling questions in the Untold Story. So welcome again, and let me bring to the fore the man of the moment, in the person of Mr. Well, we used to popularly call him um, Tolu Adebayo, but now he prefers to be called. Maybe I was asking why that transition today, why that preference. Mr. Adeola Adebayo, the chief strategist of diversity, and the lead partner, CEO of TM Bookstores. He's popularly known across the space where we are as the brain behind TM Bookstores, and a whole lot of other things that he does. Tolu, it's good. Diola, which one now? It's good to have you here today. How you doing?
I'm awesome.
Yeah, I know you are. You feel. I can feel the awesomeness here. All right,
Yeah.
so it's good to have you in the building.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right. So the first thing we usually do is to meet the guest. So tell us and tell the listening audience who is Adeola Tolulokwe Adebayo.
Okay. So before I do my intro, I would like to appreciate you for this privilege and also celebrate this work because I believe that keeping records and history is very important to any society.
Yeah.
You lose your origin, you lose your culture once you lose your history. I think it's quite important that a house like Parachute um, has its history preserved through um, a program like Untold Story, and I'm glad to be featured here.
Yeah.
Okay. And then for every other person, please feel free. I want to dare you to ask as much questions as you want to ask
I love the dare.
if you come online. So I really believe in openness, okay? And I don't have secrets. I don't plan to have secrets. So feel free, shoot it. I'm here.
Shoot your shot.
Yeah.
Okay, it's
So
gonna be a
I
great
am
Yeah.
Adeola Adebayo, and like Papadi said, um, also Tolu Lokpe or Toluwa Lokpe. So you could choose to call me any of those names right now. However, what's on my documents are Tolu Lokpe, Adeola Adebayo in that arrangement. So publicly, I am very cool with Adeola Adebayo. But once you want to issue me any document with involving what I've done, just write the full name straight, just for proper records, so that I don't have different records in different places. Yeah, so I am the chief strategist at diversity.com, as earlier introduced. I'm the WTO ITC ICC Small Business Champion 2023. Also, I'm an ecosystem builder and a tech entrepreneur. Um, I started business really early, like when I was 16 years old. That was default for everyone in my home because you would have to join my mom to our workplace. I also got exposed to leadership courtesy of the parish youth. Quite early, you could tell me introvert before. Most people didn't really know what I had within me. Used to crave writing and used to have a lot of things written down. So if you offended me, I was one of those people back then who used to like the idea of a black book or
You had a
or a
black book.
book. Yeah, I mean, I had a book that I wrote some
I know people. Yeah,
childish things, really.
we used to
Yeah.
have my diary. Yeah, people have books called my diary. So I didn't know. You named your own the black book. What do you write in the black book? That's people
Um,
that offend you. You go to the black book.
yeah, I really didn't name it the black book per se,
Okay.
but I just had a book where I could always pour out my heart with respect to when I feel cheated or when I
you
felt
can go
people
and
took
vent
advantage.
and
Yes,
go and,
like vent.
yeah.
Yes, but beyond venting, I usually then, because of the background, I mean, where I was coming from, where we are all coming from, I would basically put down things that I wish like I had superpowers to do like crazy things, like show anybody that you just can't
Your book of
deal with
fantasies
me
also.
anyhow. Yeah, like book of fantasies, really book of fantasies. So yeah, I'm a multiple founder of a couple of businesses. That's because business is my passion. I love to work with um, individuals to develop their ideas into businesses, profits, non-profits. I basically enjoy helping people develop inclusive business models
Yeah,
that contribute to social
I'll
development.
slow you down a little bit because
Yeah.
we're going to come to that in more details. All right, this is the parachute story. What's your earliest memory of your first days, weeks in parachute? How did you snowball in? What's your transition into the parachutes? Do you remember the story of how you came in, the connection, the links?
Sure, sure. So my story really started from Victory Class, like almost every one of us did, the popular Victory Class, and actually I used to look at them from afar as this set of weird people.
Weird people.
Yes, really weird
Rebels.
people. Not
Not
necessarily
rebels.
rebels, but people were not so enlightened.
Oh my god. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah.
would look
People.
I would look from afar and I would think up questions like in my head I would think up questions like you people think you know God so much, right? Was Jesus white or black? Really childish questions for me right
Yeah.
now because these are things that someone who is knowledgeable should know. But yet there were things that I felt like they didn't know well enough or they felt that they were apparently too spiritual, and so I used to look at them as people too spiritual. I didn't want to get involved.
So how did you not get involved?
So my experience started at an event in church, which could be called like a revival,
Which year was that?
possibly 2000.
2000.
Yes.
Okay.
So possibly sometime around November, because I have it written down somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though I wrote that down like years after I made that decision. So it's usual culture that when we want people to make a become different people, like when we want people to have a change of life or become completely new people, a call is given to them, and like they're asked to come forward to make Jesus the Lord of their lives. So it was at that revival held by my church that I took a bold step, left all the shame behind, and I realized my need for Jesus, and I came forward, and at that point I made Jesus the Lord of my life.
Got saved in Church of Pentecost.
Yes, I did.
That's
I
news
did
to
at
me,
the
man.
revival. At the revival.
Who was the guy in the revival? That's the church revival.
Yes, usually you remember when church used to have outside revivals,
Yeah, I remember very
not
well.
necessarily outdoor
Yeah.
revival. So that was at that point I made the decision, and then afterwards, so my story is more like something I believe should be told as well, because afterwards, it's unusual, but it was the parachute that took me on a new convert class, and that was done by my godmother, Mrs. Ololade Yogun. She was the one who took me to the class, and
Ololade.
also Dr. Ben Awosheila, who
Ben
apparently
Awosheila.
yes. So I saw both of them as like my father and my mother. So I developed closeness with them. We're a couple of us who started the class together, but just about three of us, or two of us were able to complete it. So that's how my story started. Yes, Titi. No. I can't remember. Titi Abraham. Yes, that's her. Titi Ni Abraham. We were both in the class together. And we both ended up completing the class. And then since then, I developed closeness, especially with Mrs. Lolade Yogun. Later on, I got to also develop closeness with Dr. Ben Awosheila. And I still have a relationship that helps me and nurtures me. I could reach out to them whenever I choose to, and whenever they choose to as well.
Wow, that's first. I've never really thought that your active salvation experience began with an event in the. I probably thought somebody feel like you everywhere who got saved from their mother's womb. That's really very great. So that's 2000. All right. So you went through. So you actually went through the. Is it the believers class or what do they call it then?
Then it was called New Converts class.
New Converts class.
It's that class that grew up into becoming the Believers Bible class. Yes. Yeah. Because the outlines or the materials from that class was actually developed. Then it used to be 3 outlines. We used to have New Birth, we used to have prayer, and I think we used to have Holy Spirit. So from there it was built up into the 5 classes that we have.
Who was the coordinator at that time?
Coordinator at that time when I was Mr. Femi Olushola.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's now walk through the experience, finishing the believers class, and joining the mainstream parachute. How was the experience like? What were your first experience like, your first impression entering into the system? A system that you probably had once despised from afar, and not going into a proper system, a church structure. Now you are in. What were your first experiences like? What were your first impression? Now in, different from outside.
Okay, for a start, I was still struggling.
Yeah.
Struggling in the sense that I was still struggling to identify with them.
Okay.
So then,
I'd like to know the events that helped you, the friendship that helped you.
Yes.
Lydia,
Then Lydia.
I know Lydia very well.
Niekie, Lydia Arogundade.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Is it Arogundade or... Yeah, Lydia was basically the one who was... her and some other lady would always come over to my house. And while they were on their way to my house, from the balcony, I could already observe them. And I was like, these guys have come again. These weird people have come again. These weird people have come again. And so I would run back into the house. But when they come knocking, I'd finally come outside. Yeah. They were consistent. Along with Benga Yusuf, they were both consistent. Then they were the outreach heads.
Benga Yusuf was
outreach heads. Yusuf's brother. Yeah. Then they were outreach heads. And then they literally succeeded at getting me also actively involved in outreach units. That was my first
So
unit.
your first
Yes,
unit in parachute
yes,
outreach.
was the
That's also
outreach
news
unit.
to me.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, and that was also the first unit. The I also became an executive. Yeah,
What was the first executive position?
I was outreach secretary.
Really?
Yeah.
Which year was that? So you
That
began your leadership work with the outreach unit. You joined the
yes,
outreach unit first,
yeah,
and that already speaks, lots of volume because a lot of people in this generation come into parachute through more
activity units.
through more exciting units
Yeah,
like the choir, the communicate, the
yeah,
drama. A lot of people
yeah,
that's their entry. A lot of people don't come through prayer, outreach, all
yeah.
those that. So I mean
I mean,
that's interesting.
one voice I heard while I
Mm,
was trying to make my decision to work with Christ was
mm.
that now you are going to start preaching like all these guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it was more or less like a voice that was like almost trying to prevent me from coming outside.
Yeah.
But I took the bold step. When I came outside, it was more or less like I already knew that I
So
was going
no,
to be
now
actively
I can
involved in.
understand your 1 million, 1 million soul for Jesus. You came through the outreach. I can now very much all the lines are now fitting perfectly. All right, so
Yeah.
let's walk through your first leadership experience. What was the space of time between the time you joined Parachute and your first executive office?
Okay, so it wasn't too long. I think possibly it must have been 2001. So that was at the point where there
You
was
became
going
an
to be,
executive 2001.
yeah, likely 2001 thereabout. So that was the point
You
where
were just
Victory
barely
Class,
1 year.
yeah,
Wow.
that was at the point where Victory Class was going to be dissolved.
Dissolved.
So during that time, I was also made an executive of the Victory Class. Yes.
Yeah.
So, and I struggled with that idea. I really I've never been of the opinion that things that you start should die. So I felt like, why do they want to stop this thing that has been helping everyone else? So it almost sounded like a rebellious movement too. A couple of us were executives and didn't want it to stop.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, they start encouraging us. It's a good idea. It's a good move. We're now going to have a youth chapel where we're going to be worshiping regularly. So at that point, it ceased from existing, and then there were two executives that there were two there was now a youth chapel, and there was now going to be a 7 a.m. service and then a 10 a.m. service. 7 a.m. service, then just to ensure that things were flowing with like a merger between Sunday school or the VG class and then the youth who wanted a youth chapel. They said Bro Fola, that's Mr. Fola, was going to be responsible for 7 a.m. and then 10 a.m. was going to be Mr. Ladi Udulaja, and then that was the way we formed. They formed us into an executive. Then Braladi was just coming into church. He's in the best position to tell the story. He was just coming to church after having served already and being a veteran.
Yeah.
Already at that stage, it was going to be called, and so they just called all of us up publicly without the knowledge that we're going to be taking up any role. And so it was at that point I was announced. So it was more of an appointment. We're all
As
announced.
outreach.
Yes, I was announced as outreach secretary.
Yeah.
Mr. Ladi Udulaja, who I am privileged to have my first leadership journey working with. He was then the coordinator. Brofola was his deputy coordinator, and then this went on. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Wow, quite interesting. Which year was that? It's 2000.
like I said, I think it's 2000, and I think it should be either 2000 and either 1, 2, or 3. So I'm not exactly sure. Like if I had this, I would have prepared to know the exact date.
Yeah,
But
no
in
problem.
the course of this meeting, if I do remember, I would mention.
So what was like the house of parachute like? That walk us through your experience, the ladder of growth in your leadership experience. From the moment you entered as the youth outreach coordinator,
Mm-hmm.
because we now know that. Just walk us through all the positions that you served in parachute, and then we'll now talk about all the milestones, all the fondest memories that you will not forget, in a lifetime.
Okay, so let's say that outreach was like it was my making. It was not my making in a sense. That was where most of my formation was. So myself and Femi Yusuf, who we are bosom friends. So I'm talking about the bosom friends now. We are still
Yeah.
bosom friends till date. I mean, with his family as well. Speak with every one of them. We enjoy fellowship together. So then we're serving together, and we're having some of the toughest times working together. But those were the times I started to learn to work with other people. Don't forget the background I was coming from.
Yeah.
You know, possibly a background where I was also stubborn. Possibly a background where I was still dealing with things like malice as well. You know, but myself and Femi did have some kind of relationship that helped to form me and also helped to form him. So all the way, God seems to always be putting me around. I'm a very hyper person. I'm very energetic. I'm very let's do this kind of person. A go getter more like so. Although God has always been putting me with people who necessarily have to put a balance to my passion, my kind of passion. Femi as well is very passionate, but the difference between my passion and
It's
his
cool, calm, and collected.
yes, he's cool, calm, and collected. The difference between my passion and his is that my own passion is very volcanic. Yeah.